Welcome to the Openhearted Podcast. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Openhearted Podcast. I'm your host, Will Wheeler, and I'm joined with my main man, Photon John. Kev, what's going on, brother?
I've been yelling at the TV all weekend watching one of my favorite strongman events of the year.
Oh, really? Where was it held?
In Texas, in Austin. It was
Texas,
pretty cool.
Austin, eh? Nice. Do you have a favorite person you follow or...
Yeah, there's a bunch. Martin Zlicis, he's a bit of a comedian. Alexei Novikov, he's from Ukraine and just dominating right now. But my favorite event was they had to carry these giant sandbags and put them in this roller coaster cart, and then they had to pull the roller coaster up to the top of it.
Those are the guys who pull planes and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah. It's one of my my weird autism special interests.
Nothing wrong with that, my man. Nothing wrong with that. But I tell you what, more than anything, I'm really excited for today's podcast because, I think we speak so much about mental health and some of the effects of mental health and all of that type of stuff. But you know what? We've got a really awesome guest joining us today, all the way from Melbourne, Sofia Neale. Welcome so much to the show. How are you today?
Pumped. I'm really excited. Thank you for the invitation, Will.
Nice. It's always a pleasure to have awesome people on the podcast. But what's been going on anyway, Sofia?
Oh, quite a bit of stuff, actually. I had an inclusive employment retreat that I attended last week. I've started a new job as well, which is pretty exciting. It's been pretty hectic. It's Halloween today as well, so I don't know if anyone's going to be trick or treating or has trick or treated.
Are you going to? Sure, that's the question. Are you going to trick or treat?
Well, this is my costume.
Okay, we're just waiting for the witch's hat somewhere there, is it?
I actually didn't bring one, but next time I will. We'll make sure I come at Halloween next year. And I'll be wearing a costume.
Nice. And I see you sitting in someone else's house. So what, are you just going to spook them out, are you, when they get home?
You know what? It's all about escapism, right? Always wanted a grand piano, and now it appears as though I own one. So
yes, nice. Hey, so, you were saying that you've got a new job. You're obviously doing some stuff with NeuroEmploy there.
Yes. Well, I can give you guys a bit of a scoop if you want.
Yeah, well, while we're at it, why don't you tell us a little bit of background on yourself and your work that you're doing, especially within autism?
Cool. Well, pretty much my background, I actually studied accounting. So that's really where my area of expertise was. But I've got quite a few family members that are on the autism spectrum and other sort of neurodivergent things as well. So it's I went down this pathway of wanting to learn more about neurodiversity, just personally, and how to support them. And sort of through my journey, I actually have realized that there's quite a few neurodivergent traits that I have myself, particularly around hyperfocus and, just that whole, once you set your mind to something, you really do commit to it and that sort of thing, which led me into my role working for Asperger's Victoria. So I was doing that for 2.5 years and managed to roll out the Teens Work Know How program, which is a supported work experience program for neurodivergent teens. And also within that time, I did spend a lot of time working with a lot of experts in the field as well and learn more about just neurodiversity, the strengths, the challenges as well, particularly when it comes to barriers in employment and how unfair that is. So I've become a massive advocate for neurodiversity, particularly in just breaking down some of those barriers around employment, the recruitment and selection processes, building more understanding within the workspace of how, it's a strength that can be introduced into the workplace and encouraged and celebrated, as with any level of diversity.
Yeah, totally. And this is the thing. I think that, and we say this quite often, is that we're seeing this influx, you could maybe say, of information around neurodiversity. So, we're starting to, I suppose people are really starting to take awareness of it and want to learn more, type of thing. And I think as well that, for people like ourselves, and, I'm dyslexic and ADHD, Kevin's autistic. I'm not sure what you sort of.
I think I identify more with ADHD.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing, that we're starting to see so much happening around it, and it is so important for us to grow this side of things, for people to get involved and want to learn more, type of thing, So it sounds like what you've been doing has been amazing, up to date. I know we've spoken about a lot of stuff ourselves, and I tell you what, I think we're really excited to get stuck into this. What do you reckon, Photon John?
I reckon.
Nice.
Yep.
All right, cool. So before we get stuck into this, just before we do anything, can I please ask anyone who's listening in today, please subscribe, follow, and like our social media pages. You can see them up the top of our page there. We're starting to get so many people reaching out to us now. Kevin, the sexy beast he is getting all these people stopping him in the street. Am I right, my man?
A few, yeah.
Well, mate, that's a lot more than what I'm getting, So it's really good to see that we're starting to grow. But, also too, if you're listening in, please feel free to ask us some questions. It just breaks it up. And so like this person here, so Rue, we're only just talking about Rue as well. So Rue's a good friend of ours. So this is a really important topic. So Rue says, thanks for speaking on this important topic, Sophia. Thank you, Rue. And, we look forward to maybe even hearing from Rue later on down the track as well. So that's really cool stuff there. So let's get stuck into this. I'm just okay, cool. So Sophia, when we reached out and said, Sophia, you've got to come on the podcast, you're like, what do I talk about? And you suggested mental health and diet. So what does that mean to you when, tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because if I look at sort of my life so far, diet meant different things at different stages of my life. So, when I was a teenager, diet was about trying to keep your weight down and trying to look good. And there was a massive focus on that. My background, I grew up with two older brothers. So I've played all sorts of contact sports. I've always been really athletic and very conscious of, health and fitness in general. But I think, when I think back to when I was a teenager, the primary motivation really was around looks. Then I'm going to be revealing my age here if I start going through the decades, right? So I might just, but in my
however you want to put it, but there's no judgment here.
No disclaimer, I'm 21, all right?
21,
everything else,
totally.
Remain at 21, it's 21 plus.
I'm 21, but anyway, when I hit my 30s...
Yeah, we're all 21. What are you talking about?
But like in my 20s, I actually went through a body sculpting phase. So it was really about challenging myself physically, my body sort of became more of a piece of art, if that makes sense, where I was training very specifically on trying to improve what I thought, well, what I was looking at in terms of improvement in my physical appearance. And then it sort of morphed into a greater awareness of what my perception of health and fitness was later on in life, which was more around feeling good and actually having a better understanding of, what that really means. And sort of that's when we talk about mental health and diet, it can actually be a challenging thing for some people, particularly in our community where, there is quite a high instance of eating disorders, a lack of understanding over nutrition. Not saying our community doesn't understand nutrition, but I think and I'm definitely not meaning that. It's more around educating ourselves on, what's good for us to consume and how that makes us feel. So when you actually start, combining the two and realizing that the two are actually interrelated, that's quite an empowering thing. And I think upon reflection, when I was a teenager and into my 20s, I wasn't feeling good. I might have looked good and sort of met that stereotypical sort of expectation over what fitness should look like, but I wasn't feeling good. The other thing was, having an awareness now of some like that, the ADHD side of my personality and my neurology, depending on what I'd eat, it would actually impact my ability to concentrate as well. And so that was the other part of it, starting to really tune in to my own physiology and understanding the impact that consuming certain foods would have on my ability to concentrate.
Can I say on that right now, like especially since I've gotten older, I've really learned a lot about like fluids, just drinking water. I know that if I go, and there's Kevin having some of his water there. What I found, if I'm, and we hear about this a lot with especially people who are ADHD, that we miss meals. We sometimes can, and there's been days where I'll wake up. I usually take like something to eat with me while I'm driving in the car, like a banana and things like that. And if I forget that, just somehow forget it, like you forget your lunch, it's amazing how crap, almost feeling like I've got a hangover type of feeling, even though I haven't even been drinking. Water, it's amazing how much water has played such a big role in making myself feel better or even my mental health as well.
Totally. It's really interesting because, oftentimes you can sort of feel hungry when you're actually dehydrated as well. So it's quite an interesting thing. And I've realized throughout my own journey in sort of health and fitness and diet that it's really about reaching a balance. It's funny, I was talking to Danny Blackford, who's a psychologist recently, and we were talking about just different forms of hygiene. So there's that help you improve your mental health, and it was around thought hygiene, diet hygiene, exercise hygiene, sleep, and just that obviously the personal hygiene as well. But when you actually start breaking up, these elements separately and start thinking about them and how you are actually going, if you measure yourself, how you rate in terms of what is your internal dialogue, for example. Are you thinking positively? Is there a self-deprecating element in just your thought process, the thought processes? Is that serving you? How does that make you feel? The same with diet. Are there things that you eat where you're feeling they feel good at the time, but then the following morning you're feeling really bloated and awful? Same with exercise. Like when I was particularly in my 20s, when I was going down that path, I was being trained by Mr. Victoria at the time, and I was fatiguing my muscles on multiple times a week just to build mass, right? And the majority of the time.
Sorry to cut you off there. Just on that, have you found that you've got long-term damage from some of the stuff that you did when you were younger in regards to bodybuilding and all that?
No, because I think I got out, to be honest with you. So what I tend to have is muscle memory. The thing was, I was being trained correctly as well. So when I was approaching, weight training, it was using the right postures and things like that. So if anything, there has been a very big benefit to it. And it doesn't, just because I stopped the kind of the bodybuilding side of things, didn't mean that I actually stopped exercising. Instead, I just reframed my whole mindset around exercise, and it's about doing types of exercise that make me feel good. So right now, I love the beach is my gym. So I cross train at the beach. I sand walk. There's this whole.
Sorry, can I say something on that? And sorry to cut you off again there.
Not at all.
Do you find sometimes location of where you're training is vital to your mental health as well?
Oh, absolutely. And if you Google nature therapy and negative ions and all of that, there's quite a bit of information around how we just naturally feel better and calmer when we're near water or some
do you know what's funny about that? And that's interesting you say that. So I live right near the Parramatta River. Like, seriously, if I could still throw a rock, I still can throw rocks, but I wouldn't be throwing a rock down to the river at the moment. I might hit someone. But if I could throw a rock, I could probably throw it and land into the water. I'm that close to like the Parramatta River, right? But just being able to walk along the water there of an afternoon, words can't describe it. It's almost like that's what motivates me a lot of the time, rather than just going for a walk around the block where it's normal houses and that. So that's interesting you say that.
Yeah, and this is where the thought hygiene sort of kicks in as well. So when I'm walking, I'm often just taking in the elements, breathing, like being still and finding that sense of calm for me. But equally, I'm also very grateful. Like I remind myself of how lucky I am to be in an environment, one that's beautiful. And I'm sure you find it as well with your location, it can look different from day to day, and this is the wonderful thing. We have our blank canvas of nature that we can go to, which looks slightly different every single day. It's still
like when the sun's going down and you see those different colors or the sparkling of the water, or even just seeing the boat sitting out there and hearing like the swishing of the water when another boat goes past it is almost relaxing.
Absolutely. Or, the smell after it's rained, for example.
True.
Like nature. Yeah.
John, what were you going to say?
If I could just insert the autistic perspective here, it's very similar. If I'm being really honest, I wasn't expecting to connect so deeply on this topic today, but I'm someone who lost more than 30 kilos now in the last couple of years or something, because I had this relationship, and we'll probably get back to food in a bit, but where it was a sensory thing, and it was like this sort of compulsive autistic behavior where I knew how to make the perfect cheeseburger, and it's all I wanted to eat. You know what I mean? And I got really quite large quite quickly, like over 110 kilos. I'm only 7 foot, 5'7". But I found I had to navigate my way back to a healthy place through my particular interests. That's kind of why I brought up the strongman thing, Will, at the beginning there, because that was my pathway back. I did know that I wasn't feeling strong anymore. I used to do a lot of martial arts and stuff as a kid. I gained a lot of weight, and I wanted to get that strength back, and that led me in now to being quite healthy and having lost a lot of weight, and being really interested in the diet side of things. But it was really a weird journey as an autistic person, because it wasn't just sort of like I'm making this set of choices and now I'm going to make that set of choices. It was like I need to find my to changing my mindset and changing my behavior. So I'm very interested in, if anyone doesn't mind skipping along a little bit to the next section. It was like, what is that relationship between mental health and diet?
Is that the one you're talking about there?
Yeah.
Right? Yep.
Yeah. How do they connect?
this is like an old adage, but healthy body, healthy mind, and diet plays such a big role in health. When I was body sculpting, the person that was training me was part of the Natural Bodybuilding Federation, and just the importance of diet in building muscle. There is a significant correlation there. So it's one of those things where we're consuming a lot of foods these days that are processed. I also, a negative impact for me is I get really bad. I'm not sure if you can see it. It's quite mild at the moment, but depending on what I eat, I get really bad dermatitis as well. So my body's literally rejecting preservatives. It's telling me that, this isn't good for you. So not only does diet, have an impact on just your energy levels, your mindset, it can also be what makes your skin healthy and every other part of your physicality healthy as well. So that's where it's a really fascinating area. And like right now, there's this big movement towards sustainable diet and sustainable eating, primarily around, making sure that we're not contaminating our environments. Like one thing, I was chatting to a really good friend of mine recently and found out that almond milk is one of the most unsustainable products that you could purchase because
that's interesting.
So there's like a whole other area of exploration when it comes to what we're eating. And
can I ask what it was with almond milk that it wasn't sustainable?
It's something about California, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's to do with California, isn't it? And the almond farming out there.
And also the impact that it has. Apparently it kills bees, and that.
Oh, really? I never knew
really
that.
Important for pollinating, the natural flora and things like that. So it's one of those I didn't realize. And this is where I guess we also need to educate ourselves with relation to what it is that we're consuming. I eat primarily organic now. And that's because I found that I was having a negative reaction to pesticides in fruits and vegetables that weren't organic. And I do know that there's also some criticism around organic food, but my primary focus these days is to source locally. So if you're sourcing, perishable food that's local, it's more likely that it won't have as many chemicals or pesticides or other things, treated on it.
Because I suppose a big thing for a lot of those, chemicals being added is like time being stored and stuff like that. I know with bananas, for example, they spray them with certain, not that probably it's all right to eat a banana because like they've already got like a protective casing on them. But a lot of the time they'll spray them to bring on the ripening process and stuff like that.
Exactly. There's even like genetic mutation of seeds as well, so that the seed actually has a natural, the natural pesticide in the seed is greater so that it doesn't get eaten by bugs and things like that. So the genetically modified food area is another area for exploration. And I'm not an expert. I really just go by how I feel after I've eaten the food, and I can actually tell the difference. So
it's actually interesting because, especially when we're talking about food and, mental health and all that. And I think it's so easy to slip into, we'll just go get a pizza, we'll just go do this. And, especially when, you're going through certain forms of mental health stages, it can be difficult to get into that sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Like routine of being able to eat healthy a lot of the time. Like Kev, is there times where you're like, oh man, I think I might just go get a pizza today or something like that?
Not as much now. I'm really in the habit after a couple of years now of being very healthy with my food. And I think learning about food was very interesting when I was looking at strength training and trying to pick that up. And that interested me a lot. So it's kind of, it's weird, but it's like, it's more interesting to me to eat healthy for the most part than it is to not. But you do. I mean, I've got the business to run. We've got this podcast. I've got the band to worry about. And some days it's really, really hard to stay in that habit. And you gotta, you have to allow a little indulgence here and there. But I've gone away from that sort of my mental health directly dictating my physical health, where I would just binge eat according to my mental state.
I think this might blend into this well then.
Yeah.
Is it good for mental health to indulge occasionally? So, because like I've heard some people, how like you hear like having a cheat day and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are your thoughts on that, Sophia?
Well, it's really about your relationship with food, right? So I think if I went back to my teenage years where I was calorie counting and quite, I would say upon reflection, quite obsessive about it, that binge eating would have, or not binge, but that, indulgence would have then had the aftermath of an incredible amount of guilt. And so it's really about what your relationship is with food. Nowadays, I really do feel because and Will and Kev, we've talked about what I'm doing. I'm doing so many things. If I'm not eating healthy, if I'm not sleeping well, I can't function. So it's really for me. It's really important to maintain that healthy diet because I'm so results driven as well, and I want to be switched on and at my ultimate focus as much as I can because there's so many things that I want to do, and it's really led by obviously a lot of kindness and compassion and this desire to do better for our community. But so now when there's indulgence though, like I view it as particularly, it's normally a social thing for me. So I've got like a very close group of friends and we'll enjoy meals together. And it'll be, it could be that one of my friend, a couple of weekends ago, I went to the Grampians and stayed in these pyramid homes. And my friend Kim baked the most delicious carrot cake you could ever taste. It had like the cream, sort of like the cream cheese frosting on top, and it was absolutely delicious. And what was wonderful was that I did not feel any sense of guilt. I was really enjoying that cake and really appreciative that someone that I cared about so much, went to the effort to bake it, So I hope I've answered the question.
Well, no, it's sort of a good way that you put it that way because, like there's been certain things in regards to cooking, for example, that there is almost like a therapeutic type of thing to it as well. And it was funny because I remember when I first met Kevin actually invited my brother. I don't know if you remember this, Kevin, but do you remember you invited my brother and I over to your house? I think you were living over near
in Grange.
You were living on the what's that?
Oh, this is when we first met, is it? Or
yeah.
Right.
You were living like over near the hospital, not near the valley, on the other side, over the other side of Wollongabba there.
Like Annalee.
Annalee, yeah. But it was just so good to sit down. Kevin actually cooked up a meal out of a cookbook and all that. And it was a really good experience. Do you know what I mean? And I sort of sometimes miss, I'm not saying that I miss your cooking, Kevin. I do miss your cooking, actually. But I miss being able to cook things up and actually share that with people. Hey, come over and let's cook something up. Or, hey, I'll bring a dish or something like that. I think a big thing for me was, especially coming from the background I came from in regards to drugs and alcohol, that stuff just never really happened. You know what I mean? It'd be more like, hey, can you bring over a carton of beer or, something along those lines?
you want to come over and I'll cook you some vodka?
Yeah. Things like that. So there is almost this therapeutic thing to cooking stuff for people and
I love
going,
it.
here, try this. What do you think? So no, I totally get it probably felt good. Your friend had put so much effort into it, and it probably felt good.
Yeah,
It was amazing. Yeah.
I think from the I guess where I was coming from with the indulgence side of things, I think I'm not a big believer in total abstinence. Again, it depends on your personal relationship with food, but I think total abstinence from everything can cause you sometimes, if you're a person who can fall into extremes, to crash, to fall off the wagon even harder. So that's why occasionally I do allow myself. I'll never go out for cheeseburger. I know how to cook the most amazing cheeseburgers that you will ever eat. So I go all out on a Friday night or whatever while I'm having a few beers at home. I'll cook like a really nice cheeseburger. But generally, the autism feeds into my diet as well during the week when I'm being good, because I'm eating the same kinds of meals all the time, and I know exactly how to make them and make them perfect within the gram of protein. And yeah.
Hey, Kevin, can I ask, right? Was it you who brought up something along the lines of with some autistic people, they can have a lot of, I don't know if there's like evidence around it, but can have certain gut problems type of thing?
Yeah, it's pretty common. I wouldn't say that it's 100% proven yet, but it's kind of at the point now where, smarter people than I in the field are starting to say, yes, this is common. We do think it's linked. In the same way that there's not a gene for autism as such, but we've known for a long time that it does run in the family. And it's only very recently that we actually put our finger on what was happening. There's a bunch of, extra stuff outside of genes that can make the recipe for autism happen. So yeah, they're kind of almost at the point of confirming for now that really is a thing.
Yeah,
There's
interesting.
this whole gut health movement, isn't there, as well?
Yeah.
I've got quite a few friends that are researching that at the moment and giving me a few tips around, how to really. Sorry?
I was going to ask if you knew anything about that, because I have been seeing it pop up more and more in the news, gut health and mental health.
Definitely.
Totally.
So watch this space, because I'm building a bit of a catalogue of information around that. I don't feel like I'm at a point where I could really talk about it, at least from a lived experience point of view, because I'm also adopting that stuff myself at the moment. But yes.
Yeah, interesting stuff. But just out of curiosity, let's say there's someone listening now and, they're sort of, a lot of people obviously here are thinking about, eating differently, changing those habits. And it may not have been something you've ever really gone through, but how can someone who maybe has always eaten really bad stuff, how do we reckon that we could help people change that, I suppose, mindset of trying to eat healthy? Because like we said, we're all, and you know what, it's almost like gambling, right? You watch a sports game and they're talking about like, oh, gamble responsibly. And then you'll see heaps of gambling ads after that, or the football will say, oh, now, don't gamble, but this is sponsored by such and such. We're watching TV and nearly every second ad is the new McDonald's burger or something from KFC or something like that. How, and I can get it from a person who's ADHD, especially when we're looking for something to fall back on, it can be quite easy to get into that habit. How do we think people should be approach these types of things? Should they be going and seeing a specialist, or what should we be looking at?
I think Kev hit the nail on the head about understanding, the entry point for himself. For some people, it could be around just education. So in other words, just, going down that ADHD rabbit hole where you want to learn more about health and nutrition, and then you're quite obsessively, like focusing on it and learning more and more and more. It could be through peer groups, for other people that have that need for social connection. So aligning themselves with people that lead healthy lives and actually modeling that could be another way. I think, for others, it could be that, they're not feeling good about themselves. And, the motivation is to look good. But obviously we don't, that can obviously lead into more serious issues. But if the motivation, for example, is that you want to look good and feel good, then perhaps that's what will be the motivator for you.
Could I ask around that? I know where I'm coming from with how good I feel about how much weight I've lost, and but I've always sort of found it a little difficult. Where do you think the balance lies on expressing that in public, without, I guess hurting some other people's feelings, or coming across as though you're, that you're judging people who haven't been able to achieve that, or you're judging people who don't want to achieve that, or am I making sense in what I'm asking? I find it a little difficult to talk about it because it's such a positive experience that I've had, losing so much weight and regaining strength and stuff. But I want to talk about it in a respectful way that isn't talking down to other people.
Well, I think this is the other part of it. It's when we go back to the hygiene, the thought, diet, exercise, sleep, and personal. We're more talking about mental health and you having a positive sense of self. And you can have that if you're in any shape, size, or whatever. It's really, I feel like you could always you could be meeting, let's say you're getting sleep, you're maintaining your personal hygiene, you've got a positive mindset, those things in themselves can really be a positive contributor to mental health. So it's not really about judging anyone or at the stage that they're at. It's more about supporting someone, supporting people in making that decision for themselves if they're not feeling good.
I have honestly copped a little bit of hate online for talking about it, because people sort of assume my attitude towards people who don't lose weight or don't want to lose weight. But it's just been such a positive experience for me personally. It's made me feel good about myself. So I struggle a little understanding how to talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's just coming from a place of love and just accepting everyone around us,
Yeah.
That's why I really wanted to make it clear this is me sharing my own personal journey down with mental health and diet. And like I mentioned before as well, I was at my fittest, but I had a really poor association with food and sense of self. I think right now, without having that amount of, it's just strict routine and so forth in my life, this is the best that I've felt ever, at this age.
So it must feel good to just be able to, like we said, cheat days, or even if someone does say, hey, you want to come over to my house and drink French champagne, you can without feeling guilty or thinking, oh, gee, tomorrow I'm going to have to hit the gym twice as hard because I'm going to have to burn these calories.
Yeah.
That's almost unhealthy within itself.
That's where I was at, and there are people that are elite athletes and, have this really positive association, and they could be just as, physical as their exercise regimes would have been even more stricter than what mine was and still feel good. It's just for me personally, I found that I was really critical of how I looked as a consequence of going down that path. And it really didn't serve me. And I guess what I'm after more in terms of my own pathway now is just really remaining positive about all aspects of my life, not just how I look.
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting point because, I think we're here, especially with how we look, and it's almost like a thing that you said before, Kev. You know, we are starting to see this big change in how people, because you know, there's some people who, you know, they could eat healthy and exercise all they want, but nothing changes, you know, sometimes, you know. So I know for myself, I think the biggest thing for me a lot of the time is how I'm feeling, you know, and like I said before, just drinking water, you know, like I've got heaps of like cans of water that I try to just drink so much of now. And, you know, little things like that, meditating, where, you know, 3 times a day sometimes, depending on certain things. Time is a factor there. But, you know, it's amazing how good you do feel when you put that effort in, if that makes sense. It's almost like
Absolutely.
with you, Kev, like going to the gym and, you know, doing that stuff. It is amazing how good you feel. Now, don't get me wrong, I still probably am not the person I want to be yet, and it's always an up and down battle. But I think having some type of guidance is better than no guidance at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you might find that at different stages of your health life cycle that you may need to seek assistance from someone that's a professional or a personal trainer or a dietitian.
Do you
You
know
know,
what, right? With a personal trainer, I had a personal trainer once, and it almost ruined my experience because this person, you know, quit on me and then went to another gym or something and
yeah.
then came back and goes, "Oh, I'm back at the gym again now, so you're mine." And I felt like going, "Now bugger off, mate. Like you don't care about your clients. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're just pissing me off and putting me with some idiot, you know." And it sort of ruined my experience, you know.
I'm sorry to hear that. But
Oh
that might
no, it's
also be
okay.
where an app would be better. Like that we've
What's
got
that?
some, or an app would be better, you know,
Yeah,
like
I
if
got to
you've got,
admit, some of those apps aren't too bad because I often think, because I haven't joined a gym in a while. I usually do a lot of exercise, you know, like going for walks. Like I'll probably go for, the only problem is it's like, I don't know about anyone else, but who enjoys going for a walk when it's like gusty winds?
Yeah, no.
Do you enjoy it? I
yeah,
hate that shit. I
I love it.
seriously can't stand it. So it's blowing a gale right now, and I'm sort of like, do I go? Do I not? I like when it's like calm. I don't know. That's just me.
I look like an Eskimo. Like I've got literally like this coat that's got this fur.
Serious.
Um, but I just love being outside. I think that's part of my
Mm.
own kind of preference in terms of needing to move. Um,
Mm.
my brain's going at like a million miles an hour all the time, and there are points where I just think, oh gosh, I just need to get up and just reset, and so that's part of my routine now.
Do you
Um,
know what?
I,
Sorry. Can I just say something funny? Right. I usually go like walking later at night when it's nice and cool and all of that. And I often, this probably sounds funny. I often like am worried that like I'm gonna like be a witness or called in for like a murder or something like that because I might see something and I'm like, yeah, nah. If anyone says anything, this is what I'm gonna say because I'm doing nothing wrong. I'm just walking. Because you know how you hear about people who have been wrongly accused type of thing? And like, because you see other walkers out there sometimes. So it's a bit of a weird situation. But
I know.
anyway, Kev, what were you going to say?
I know. With night walking, you definitely walk by a few dodgy looking walkers.
Hell
But
yeah, man.
no, I think. I mean, what I'm seeing here is really kind of what we're saying. We all come at this from a different angle. I do my best work lifting weights in front of the TV. Like I worked out through the entire every minute of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, The Walking Dead. I just do it all in front of the TV, and it just keeps me there and motivated to be in front of that even started to improve my sleeping, so I'm getting to bed earlier. I'm getting up earlier because I really look forward to doing that. Then I don't let myself watch TV unless I'm doing that. But I also really love, like I said, the cooking side of it, the learning about food. I've just engaged a nutritionist. I can't wait to start learning about food a bit more. And there is nothing like a walk by the river. I really do love that.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, you got the core of it is you got to understand your personal relationship with fitness and food, and find your in. Find what
But can I say, right, in regards to like cooking food and all that, I look at some recipes online, right, and I look at them, I'm like, that's supposed to be healthy? Do you know what I mean? I think like some people could get really caught out by false advertising almost, because I'm seeing like I looked at some recipe the other week and it's like, yeah, you do this, and then afterwards just pile on the low fat cheese. And it's like, yeah, okay, but I'm pretty sure that even though it's low fat cheese, piling on that amount of cheese isn't gonna be good for me. Do you know what I mean?
Less healthy than no cheese.
Yeah, totally. But it's just like, what the hell? Or like say like I'll see like some healthy pizzas and it's like, man, that still looks pretty unhealthy. You know what I mean? Little things like that.
You got to be really discerning with the information you take in, because there's anything you can find anything that says anything you want it to say on the internet. You've got to really take the time to sort through it and understand.
Out of curiosity, Sophia, what's like some healthy meals that you normally cook up?
Oh, cool. Well, my go-to. So I love my protein. I was a vegetarian for 5 years, and unfortunately for me, it didn't actually serve me as much as it does many other people. My iron levels dropped significantly, even with like a very well-balanced plant-based diet. But I am going to look into revisiting that and seeing if there's, a better way. But for me personally, I love to just like get some chicken or a steak, lamb, even kangaroo, cook that up and steam veggies.
How do you cook that meat, out of curiosity? Do you boil it? Do you use oil? Or
for me, well, cooking a steak, I've been given a pretty decent tutorial on it. I heat a fry pan up to maximum, and then I get the char. So it's more of a medium rare to medium for me.
So no oil in that?
No, I don't cook with oil normally.
That's good. That's good.
Just the bare steak,
and some salt.
Like some salt,
Got to have a bit of taste there.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Got to have a bit of taste there, right?
Yeah. Do you both eat meat or like a?
Yeah, no. I sometimes like I will not. So I to tell you the truth, I eat a lot more fish. So I will normally bake the fish, and I may spray a little bit of like spray oil on there. But what I noticed, because I eat a lot of salmon, there's actually a lot of oil within that type of stuff. Like, I think it's like a healthier type of oil type of thing. But if you bake it, you'll see a lot of oil come out of it anyway, regardless if you put oil on it. So I'm very mindful of that. Usually with chicken, I will boil it a lot of the time, and then I'll like usually pull it apart type of stuff and have it like a shredded chicken type of thing. That's just my creativity right there.
Yeah. I sort of rotate back and forth between chicken and vegetables and salmon and vegetables. The salmon is always baked in the oven with like a big ton of vegetables on top of it. But with steak, that's my weekend food, and I actually dry age steaks as well. So I'm like, that's my big weakness, is a good dry age steak. I don't eat them out because it's hard to find. Again, it's hard to find one as good as how I perfected it. So.
Yeah, it's interesting. My go-to is just picking really good quality ingredients. So I've got like an artisan butcher that I go to.
Yeah.
There's a local grocer, Greek grocer that's online, but they source all of their produce from local farmers.
Do you ever go to the farmer markets?
Yeah, I love it. I really do.
Yeah, I used to go to the farmer markets back up in Brisbane, but I just don't know too many down here in Sydney. But actually, there's some markets just across the road from my house on every second Sunday, and I do love getting like some of like the real like different types of bread and all that. Do you eat bread at all, or you?
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Like I've reintroduced. Well, I went for the high protein, low carb diet in my 20s, but I've definitely need some slow releasing carbohydrate in my diet to help my brain work. So for me, like I'm very much a multigrain bread person, but then I was talking to someone recently about just the sourdough, and that being a really good thing for your gut as well. But then we started getting onto the topic of, where are these things grown and where are they made? It's fine to go and get something from a local farmer, but if there's a factory next door, for example, all of those chemicals will be seeping into the soil and stuff like that.
It's actually interesting because I was listening to do you know who James Maynard Keen is? Or Maynard James Keen, I think his name is, the lead singer from Tool. Yeah, Keenan. Yeah, so the lead singer of Tool, right? So he owns actually a winery, vineyard. He owns a few of them actually, but he's actually started like this Italian restaurant, and I think on one of his farms they have all of their food organic and all this. And they actually get the, I think the wheat or the grain or whatever it is for the pasta is imported from Italy itself, because it's organic and they know it doesn't have any like chemicals in it and all of this type of stuff. Which I thought, oh wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I do make my own pasta. It's a form of meditation for me.
Oh wow! What do you make? Is it gnocchi?
I can make gnocchi. I actually dated an Italian for 3 years and was there with the nonna and was rolling the gnocchi. So yeah, I've been given some tips from Calabria.
So you're able to take something good away from that relationship, right?
Of course. There's always a learning experience.
Yeah, it's always a learning experience, right? That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, just out of curiosity, like. What do you normally have for, say, breakfast? Because we hear that breakfast is like the main meal of the day, all of that. What would normally a normal breakfast? Do you normally have the same thing, or do you mix it up and then?
Very much a routine person. So for me, I tend to have oats. So I make myself like porridge with banana, which
Do you like oat milk?
Oat milk.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I actually use goat's milk in my diet.
Okay. Interesting.
Oh, wow.
Out of curiosity, why?
Well, I found that dairy, like the cow's milk, was just really, I feel quite bloated from it. So I went down sort of this little exploration pathway, and goat's milk has the lactose particles in goat's milk is the closest to actual human milk. But personally, I find that I digest it better, and I feel more energized than what I do with cow's milk.
Does goat's milk taste as different from cow's milk as goat's cheese does from cow cheese?
Well, it's really funny because I have an espresso
That's
machine.
a good question, Kevin.
I am such a foodie. I tend to make everything myself from scratch. So that's like, it's definitely my meditation. So I have my own coffee grinder and beans and everything else, and froth my own milk. And I'll have people come over and they'll say, "Oh, I will never try goat's milk." So I don't say anything. I'll make them whatever they want, cappuccino, a cafe latte or whatever. And they'll say, "Wow, this is really nice." And so it's a long answer to your question. I can't really tell the difference in terms of taste.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But then I was speaking to someone who grew up with literally in the mountains of Greece with goats, and they can smell it from a mile away. Well, I'm not that person though.
Wow, unreal. Because I do drink a fair bit of like oat milk, and I like it because it's nice and thick.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just don't like that.
There really is a textural component to food, isn't there? Like for me, I went through a chip phase. I love like chips, the crunch. And then I replaced it with carrot sticks, believe it or not, sticks, and just like fresh peas. And I just love the crunch. I love hearing the crunch sound, and that was my replacement.
Cool.
Almost like a addiction.
Yeah.
It's true, right? Because say like if you're having a cigarette.
Yeah, it's a bit of a almost a autistic sensory thing, although I know that's not how you identify. But yeah, I'm the same. It's textures and sounds of my food and the color of my food, and all this kind of stuff. I guess I'm being aware of the time. I just wanted to make sure, Sofia, is there anything we haven't touched on that you really wanted to communicate today? Just as a parting conversation.
I think just what resonated with me around mental health and diet, just mental health in general, is that, or what's helped me is an acknowledgement that healthy body equals healthy mind for me. And being able to break it up into a framework helps me to understand. So I'm wondering, maybe the broader community might find this helpful too. But that hygiene thing that I was mentioning before, the thought hygiene, diet, exercise, sleep, and personal hygiene, I find that if I sit back and do like a mental audit of how I'm actually tracking out of 10 in those areas, it's just a good check-in for me, and helps me sort of find that balance again.
Yeah, cool.
Interesting.
Your hands are kind of disappearing off to the sides there as you're talking.
Oh yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Awesome. Well, I can't think of too much more to think about. Sofia, if some people wanted to get in contact with you, not in regard, might be in regards to healthy eating, but in regards to some of your other work with NeuroEmploy or anything like that, where's the best place to find you?
LinkedIn I'm more than happy to connect on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to me. And I will give you a bit of a scoop. We are going to have we're in the process, in the early stages of planning for NeuroEmploy 2023. So
nice.
It will be very exciting, and it was.
Where will it be held?
Pardon?
Where will it be held?
We're definitely. I might just leave that. We're tossing a few options at the moment. We definitely do like the online option still for accessibility reasons.
So you can't do it hybrid? Do you know what hybrid is? Like, it's a bit of both.
I do know what hybrid is, and it's early stages of planning. But
okay, I'll take that silence as like maybe.
Can I just butt in here, because I think you're talking about something that we haven't spoken about on the podcast yet. I'm not sure what we're talking about, NeuroEmploy 2023. Just for all the listeners out there, what exactly is that?
NeuroEmploy 2022 was a 2-day virtual conference that we had earlier this year. Well, actually a few months ago, and it was all about learning more about inclusive employment. We had the 2 days were broken up into different themes. So the first day was about engaging with businesses that have actually embraced neurodiversity and how they've done it. And then day number 2 was about really focused on the job seeker and providing essential information around how to accessing employment, the recruitment and selection processes, the innovations in the area. So it was a really good chance to build a bit of a community around the topic and to give the community a chance to actually ask any questions of some pretty amazing people that work in the area as well. So it's really just
sure
about...
Will Wheeler was speaking there, and that was the highlight of the event, wasn't it?
Can I just say, Will, I mean, I thought that you spoke so eloquently, but you were
It was the environment of the people around me that really made me shine, right?
You shone bright like a diamond, right? And that's...
I've actually never seen Will speak publicly in all the years we've known each other. I got to make that happen at some point.
You will.
Oh,
you will.
But yes, so it is happening. There will be a neuro employee in 2023.
I mean, that seems like a good episode for a future date. A good chat to have.
I'm assuming that would be Barb, right? Probably best to have Barb on to speak about that.
Well, I think you have already spoken to her about that. So
yeah. Well, I speak to so many people, so I'm sure we'll get Barb on at some point there. But Sofia, thank you so much for sharing everything that you've shared with us today. You are an amazing person. You're doing some really cool stuff out there, and I tell you what, we're still so excited to have you share everything on the podcast today. Kev, did you have anything else you wanted to share before we close this up?
No, just a big thank you to Sofia. It's been a good chat, and you'll probably hear a little more from the three of us in the future on some other stuff we're working on.
Good job. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone for listening. If there's any more you'd like to find out about us, some of our other podcasts, please go to our social media platforms. My name's Will Wheeler. I'm joined with my main man, Photon John, and Sofia Neale today. Thank you very much for listening. Until next time.
Keep up the great work, guys.